Okay, so here we are looking at my 1977 Dodge M880 that I use for plowing, and I'm having some trouble keeping the power up when I plow for over about 45 minutes. This here is a Myers E47 pump. It was professionally rebuilt in 2007. I changed all the fluid and everything out, went through it again this year, 2013. Everything looked good. But I'm having some trouble. Now, I've always had trouble with losing power on this truck. And it was suggested that I upgrade the batteries, and I have. I also added a dual battery setup, which just helped out, but still having some trouble. Cleaned up all the grounds, and we'll walk through that. There's a ground wire back there that grounds off onto the coil. This here is the ground strap for the second battery. This is a 2-gauge grounding wire. I have a 2-gauge positive wire that goes from the positive end from the second battery over to the positive end of the primary battery. Over here is the grounding block, or where I ground to the block for the primary battery. The original battery cable appears to be a 6-gauge that comes off from the negative of the primary battery to the block. In addition to that, I have a 2-gauge strap that runs from the block down to the frame. And all these ground points have been cleaned. The main power wire for the primary battery comes into the starting solenoid. All this has been cleaned. This is the starting solenoid for the plow pump. I've added 2 brand new 4-gauge wires. This is the wire coming in from the battery lead, and this is the wire that goes out to the actual pump motor. Everything has been cleaned and sprayed down with fluid film. Now, on a forum that I had, it was suggested that I run a secondary primary wire from the alternator, which is an upgrade from the original 60 amp. This here is a 100 amp alternator that came from Summit Racing, and I added a 8-gauge wire, or 10-gauge wire over, and it ties into the starting solenoid with the original charging wire. Now, that wire is new since 08, and the original charging wire has been replaced since 08. Now, one of the things that I'm considering on doing is, on the forum, the guys said that they run a 6-gauge wire from the alternator to the battery. Now, I don't know, to me that looks like a pretty small stud to be running a 6-gauge wire off of. So I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page as everybody here. I'm going to make up a 6-gauge wire, and I'm going to run it off of this stud directly to the post of the battery. Now, one of my questions is, can I tap that into my secondary battery? You know, just go from here to there, or do I have to run it from the alternator lug all the way back to the primary battery? And I'm wondering what kind of improvement that'll actually make. So hopefully some of you guys with some experience can pipe in, take a look at what I'm actually working with here, and tell me what I should do. Now this has an external, as most of these older Dodges did, a voltage regulator. Now the truck runs fine. I don't have no issues with the truck running, except for when I'm plowing. It's putting out 14.8 volts when it's running with nothing on. It drops down to like 14.3 volts or something like that, or a flat 14 volts with the lights and the blower motor running. And then when I hit the plow pump, it'll drop down to just above 12 volts, and when the plow pump bottoms out, when it deadheads, it drops below 12 volts. Another thing that was suggested to me was that there may be a grounding issue here with this pump. This pump apparently grounds to the aluminum block on these old E47s, and there might be a grounding issue going on, and it's never really getting to the new wire and creating a high amp draw. And my question to that is it possible just to you know, weld a stud on in here and then run the ground wire straight to the casing of the motor? Can I ground it through one of these bolts? Should that be the case. Now I do not know the amp draw of the pump. I don't even know how to check it. I don't even have the equipment to check it. But what I want to know is, looking at this wiring setup that you guys are seeing here, what's right with it and what's wrong with it. I'm positive that everything is clean. It's not a bad connection. All the wiring is new, with the exception of the original negative battery cable and the original positive starting cable. Those appear to be 6-gauge wiring. And highly interested in knowing what else I can do to keep this truck up and running for longer than 45 minutes. Now I have read posts where they talk about happy hands, and that's not an issue. I don't overly use the pump when I'm plowing, and I still run out of juice at about 45 minutes. And what I mean by that is, it'll start to stall the truck out. I'll hit the pump, even if it's not deadheaded, I'll just hit it, it'll stall out the truck. I can immediately restart the truck, and then I have to either, keep going with where the pump is, or I have to put the truck in neutral, rev it up, and continue to go on that way, which makes for a very long night when you're plowing. Now, earlier, yeah, you know, a couple years ago, this wasn't a big issue for me because I didn't do a lot. I just did my stuff and my parents' stuff and my neighbor's stuff. But, you know, now I'm getting more and more people wanting to be plowed out when the snow gets deep, and the truck I can't keep the truck running. So I need to know what I need to do. This alternator is only 4 years old. The charging system has been checked by Advanced Auto. They say the batteries are good. They say the alternator's good. But you know, I'm overlooking something here, or I'm not understanding something here, or something. And there you have it. Many thanks for your guys' help.